All right, guys, welcome to another Moto Stories with Unkie Phil and
Aunt Merritt.
And we are today with, these are not props, this is actual real Ohio snow. For the past week or so, we've been having Snowmageddon here. It's not that bad, a couple of feet of snow. We've all seen worse. But what we're going to talk about today, which is absolutely nothing to do with snow.
No.
Not at all.
No.
So for our Christmas break, every year on Christmas break, we kind of go somewhere different.
Yeah, it's always a fun time to travel.
It is, and because Merritt works in the schools, Christmas is always the time to go. And a few years ago, we started going warm places. That's probably my fault. We've gone to cold places. We've gone to Germany. And
we actually tend to alternate warm and cold, if you've noticed.
That is true.
Yeah.
We've been to Montreal, we do that
City.
kind of stuff, Quebec City and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so this year, though, we went to the U.S. Virgin Islands. And we figured there was a little bit of logic there. The U.S. Virgin Islands is known for being a destination of cruise ships. And it turns out that during COVID, cruise ships haven't been that popular. And so there haven't been so many cruise ships. His head is in the shot. You know that?
It's not.
Yes, it totally is in the shot.
The fucking bottle was literally whistling.
Okay, so now we're in. Oh, that's what that was all about?
Yeah.
Was the beer bottle was whistling as the snow went over it?
Yes.
Check. Yeah, that's our audio engineer, exactly. So we decided to go to the U.S. Virgin Islands because there's no cruise ships.
And we thought it would be easy because it's part of the United States.
Yeah.
And for anyone who's watching this, if the times of COVID quarantine have long passed by,
right.
It was different rules for being within the U.S. or not. So we thought, let's sidestep all that. Let's try the U.S. Virgin Islands. Turns out that we still had to follow a lot of extra rules, but it was definitely worth it.
It was worth it.
Yeah.
And then we got there too. Once we got there, we knew that everybody else on the island didn't have COVID.
That's right.
And everybody was very cool about it. So the one thing that we had thought going into it, because we knew we were going to be there for about 2 weeks, and I was looking at a lot of the sites telling people, and I love renting motorcycles, I love having bikes where we go places. There was a lot of reviews that said, don't even try. The U.S. Virgin Islands is not a good place to rent a motorcycle.
Before you go on,
Please.
because a lot of people might not know, the U.S. Virgin Islands is a set of 3 islands: St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix. So we traveled to St. Thomas and St. John. And
right.
Yes, people said, don't even try to ride motorcycles there. And what's one of the main reasons why they say that, Phil?
Well, they said it because apparently the place is steeper than hell.
Yes.
And they said that the locals drive like crazy.
But there's one other really important thing.
What was that?
Drive on the left side of the road.
Oh yeah, they drive on the wrong side of the road. Yeah, that was kind of, you're right. They brought that up a lot. And since all my cars have the steering wheel on the wrong side anyway, I figured that wouldn't be a big problem. We've been to Australia and stuff and ridden motorcycles in Australia and scooters, so that wasn't really too scary for us.
But part of what people
But that was part of what people said. That was one of the reasons you might not want to ride a motorcycle in St. Thomas and St. John. And so I'd made some phone calls, and I realized that there was only one place in the whole thing, in all the Virgin Islands, to rent a motorcycle or a scooter, but there were 1,000 places to rent Jeeps. And they said, well, yeah, you have to have a Jeep because it's not so much, we're not worried about snow or mud, we're worried about how steep the place is. And that is true, we did see evidence of that. But I said, okay, well, I talked to a guy and he said, well, I can get you a Jeep, maybe not, maybe by the 3rd or 4th day that you're here, we'll get you a Jeep. So I thought, well, in the meantime, we'll just get a bike, we'll get a bike to start with, and then eventually we'll move into a Jeep when we get to where the steeper terrain is. Okay, fine, no problem. So that's all good. And we show up, and we had made a decision to go with a scooter. And why did we do the scooter?
Well, we were traveling with just the luggage that we could carry on our backs because we knew we had to depend on a two-wheel vehicle.
Right.
And for, the scooter, it's got storage under the seat, it's got a rack on the back, and,
Big floorboard area, too.
Big floorboard
Yeah.
area, and quite kindly, kind of a nice seat for the passenger. So
Yeah.
getting a scooter
Yep.
to start off with was seemed like a great choice. Really
and they
easy.
and they had nice scooters. They had Honda PCX 150s, which is a quality bike. And so I thought, to make it more comfortable for Merritt, who was already making a huge sacrifice, by the way, of traveling for 2 weeks out of one backpack. Can your wife travel for 2 weeks out of one backpack? Because mine can. That's pretty cool. And so we got out to the place, and we got to the joint, super nice guy. And so there's a scooter sitting there, and it only had, 12,000 miles on it or something. It was like 2 years old. And it was in good shape, fair enough. Signed all the paperwork, and as we say, off we fuck. And we jump on this thing, and we go bopping around a little bit. We go find our hotel, or we had a cool little standalone cottage, I guess you'd say, like one of these places that's in a compound. And man, we could pull right up to our joint. Like we could pull right up to the place we were staying, and it had a little patio with a locked door.
Yeah.
And we could pull the
like
bike.
A garden, you know,
yeah, it's like a garden thing.
Walled garden.
So cool. And so we had security, we had a good place to get our stuff ready, and that was all pretty good. And we're like, yeah, the scooter's probably gonna work out fine. But then we went to the top of St. Thomas.
It's actually called the Mountaintop Bar, famous for banana daiquiris, which are terrible.
They are terrible.
But it set us up to realize that the scooter was going to be difficult because it made it up okay, which was great. However, coming down, we're getting great views, right? You just get
Beautiful.
amazing views from all sides of the island. But the trouble was, you know, he's coming down and he's saying things like, I think I've cooked the brakes. I think I've cooked the brakes. No, I don't have brakes.
So yeah, the front brakes literally left. So the front brakes boiled out. Now, normally when you cook the brakes on any vehicle, you know, we've all done it, or maybe if you haven't done it, you should live a little more adventurously. But we did cook the brakes, and that means we're coming down an extremely steep road with traffic coming the other way on the wrong side of the road.
All the Jeeps.
All the Jeeps, all the trucks, all the people delivering water, and they're going
And bananas.
way right of center. Yeah, bananas too. So the banana daiquiris, go figure. And there's no brakes in this thing. And I'm telling her, I'm like, oh, we're gonna have to do some negotiating on this, because simply using the rear brake alone was just painting stripes on the road. So it was no control whatsoever.
But you were saying, hopefully they'll come back.
And I gave it some time to cool down. I stayed off of them, and after 14 turns and 2 pairs of underwear later, the brakes came back. So that was nice. We had some brakes eventually, but
look, when we picked up the scooter, there was a KLX motorcycle sitting there.
Yep.
And we had rented the scooter. We decided to go with the scooter for the comfort reasons we talked about. But when these brakes started failing, I just started saying, look, we need to go back and get that brand new KLX, because I don't care if it's comfortable or not. I don't care if the seat pad's a little less. I don't care if we have to keep things on our back instead of tying them to the bike. We need brakes, clearly. This is a big thing. And
we hadn't even seen the real hills yet. So we did go back, and we were cheerfully given a brand new KLX 300.
Yeah.
And I mean brand new, like maybe 200 miles.
Yeah, it was brand new.
It was brand new. So we get the KLX.
Yeah.
And Merritt's got her backpack on her back, and I've got my backpack on my front. And that's no way to live, by the way. And we're driving it, and we're kind of realizing, the KLX is amazing. I mean, it was amazing. In fact, it took us about one day to call it the KL Excellent.
That's right. We've talked a little bit about the switch over between the scooter to the motorcycle for performance.
Yep.
You mentioned a little bit before about how we parked at our first of 3 places.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about the importance of parking and why having a motorcycle in the U.S. Virgin Islands is so amazing? So we could talk about our 3 places we parked, and then
we did want to bring up that everybody rents Jeeps. So all the things that we take for granted here, like Lyft and Uber and taxis and bus service and everything else, they got these chicken wagon taxi kind of things, or whatever they called those, dollar taxis. Mm-hmm. They run around. It's basically a Ford F-350 pickup truck with a bunch of seats in the back of it. But they don't go where you want to go when you want them to go there. So they're convinced the thing that everyone says...
Not that we'd know, because we never tried one once.
Right, yeah. And then whatever it tells you, though, is you got to get a Jeep.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is everybody gets Jeeps. And then there's no room for anything else.
That's right. All these beautiful, amazing beaches have really tiny parking lots.
Yeah.
So having a motorcycle when we were out and about, whether it was going to restaurants in town, whether it was going to all these gorgeous beaches like Trunk Bay and Maho Bay and Cinnamon Bay, we were just able to stick our motorcycle in these little, between the trees more often than not.
We park them in the woods.
And it was just so perfect. And, word hasn't really gotten out, because the whole time we were on St. John, we only saw, literally 2.
So this is what's hilarious. We talk about Lake Erie has the least boats on it of any lake in the world. The U.S. Virgin Islands has the least motorcycles of any islands in the world. There is not an island I could think of that we're done bombing that has less motorcycles on it than the U.S. Virgin Islands. In our entire time on the U.S. Virgin Islands, we saw 3 motorcycles. One was the one we were on. The other one was the brother to the one that we were on, was rented from the same place we rented ours.
Ours was number 83, it was number 81.
That doesn't mean he has 83 bikes, by the way. That means in the history of the company, there's been 82 bikes. But what it is these were the only 2 KLXs he had, right? Yeah. And I thought was hilarious is we saw one like Honda XR400 that had been upside down, underwater, flooded, monsooned, hurricane.
It's probably an Irma survivor.
It was a Hurricane Irma survivor for sure. And that's the only other running motorcycle we saw. We saw many motorcycles and scooters abandoned next to recently crashed trees. And that, I think, might be where some of the stories came from about how dangerous the island was for people on motorcycles. Because you'd be like, look, I think that's a motorcycle. You'd be like, no, that's the back of a motorcycle. And it's growing through a palm tree. So it was pretty fierce.
Yes, well, you mentioned a little bit about how we were able to travel lightly. Yep. Do you want to talk? Let's talk a little bit about the details of our packing and how, yes we each had one backpack, right. But there were some really important things when you're trying to like go to the beach and do different kinds of events, be out all day. There's no food to get when you're out. So
have a bag, a beach bag, with your flippers in it and your snorkel masks in it and your snorkel tubes in it. And then whatever else you need, we call it pogey bait, snacks or whatever. And you take that thing and you literally bungee it to the handlebars of the bike. Because it's shocking how much weight you can put on handlebars of a motorcycle. Yeah. It's the luggage rack they never tell you about. And as long as you don't get it wrapped up with a clutch cable and stuff like that, I brought bungee cords with us. So I brought a couple of bungee cords with us. If you're packing for a motorcycle or a trip that you think might involve a motorcycle, oh fuck it, just always take, flat bungee cords are great. Yep. And so we took a couple of those, and it was awesome because what we could do is we could have Merritt with her backpack, and I could take my beach bag with all of our beach stuff on it.
Or just like my light
shoulder bag.
Inner bag, yeah.
Yep. And it's so much more fun. Now, you may have heard the term all the gear all the time. That does not exist when you're in the Virgin Islands.
Right.
Because one, we didn't take any gear with us. We kind of thought we might be in a car. So turns out when Merritt got there, and Merritt was like, so I'd like, we obviously in the Virgin Islands, you're required by law to wear a helmet.
Yes.
But the helmet they're giving you is like, it's been crashed 400 times. It smells like puke and blood. It's really a mess. Okay, Merritt, tell them about the helmet you got.
Yeah, well, so that's a good segue into talking about safety.
Safety.
So I can definitely start with a helmet. So, it was, and to this guy's credit, running this literally scooter and motorcycle shop
shed.
Out of a shed with more cats around.
Oh, way more
than
cats than
bikes.
motorcycles.
They were sweet though. The helmet selection, yes, he had 3 shelves of helmets, but there was one was more of an embarrassment than the other. I mean, and he kept I'm saying like closest thing to a full face, because I don't know, I'm really safety conscious when it comes to riding. And they were all, like you said, scratched up, chunks of foam.
It was very hard to
missing.
find one helmet that had foam, a strap, and a shell.
And wasn't an extra double
It was
extra
very
large.
hard to find a helmet that had all 3 of those ingredients. Because you'd be like, okay, that looks like a medium. Hand that over here. Wait, there's no foam inside of it. Right?
So that was like a compromise I had to make. Found one that I could live with.
You might want to bring your own helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you plan to ride. And
second thing.
Yeah.
Flip-flops.
So just when I was packing, getting ready to go, knowing that there was a potential that we weren't going to have a car, I really had a decision to make, because like I said, I'm normally a full safety gear kind of gal, and I just had to say, in the interest of this trip, I'm just going to have to make some exceptions. I really trust Phil as a rider, even though he won't like it that I say this because of the, ride fast and shake chances and all that. But hopefully with me on the back, and in a new circumstance, he was a little bit more careful. And I had to suspend that. So, if you're thinking about riding in a place like the Virgin Islands, it isn't practical, obviously, to have all your gear with you. So, yes, I rode in, sativa sandals and shorts and things that I never ever would do at home. And there was really only one piece of safety equipment or safety protection that I was happy with.
Did you have the DOT sunblock?
Yes, my
DOT sunblock.
I had
that was totally it,
sunscreen.
man. SPF 50 keeps the road rash away. You're good.
Well,
you're fine.
It helped with the sunburn, but like I said, there was definitely some TLC and some luck involved. But Phil was there. Did I ride in the back with you the whole time?
So there was only one time. So this entire time, 2 weeks, she was on the back being my navigator. And that's smart too. Rather than have 2 people on 2 bikes and nobody knows where they're going, have the person on the back with the intelligent device when the roads aren't marked. We didn't see a street sign for 2 weeks. There's no addresses and there's no fucking street signs.
It's definitely a turn left at the donkey kind of a place.
Turn left at that donkey, right. And that's what we did. And so Merritt's on the back calling out the turns. That was amazing, epic, and getting the better photos as we needed them. But the only one time was Merritt ever not on the back of the bike, and that was one time I may have been overserved at the beach bar. We were done for the night, or she said we were done for the night.
The bartender said it
The bartender
first.
said we were done for the night, to be quite honest. And so we went out, and I found a motorcycle that looked like mine.
Well, there weren't many to choose from.
The key fit. And so I was like, hop on. And she's like, nah. And I said, hop on. And she goes, nah, I'm walking. And I went, oh, come on. Like, it's a couple miles. She walked.
So I walked, but he kept going.
And I did wheelies. So since she wasn't on the back of the bike for the first time, I was like, okay.
And we went right by the car ferry that we transitioned between the two islands
and
on.
you will need a thing called the Big Red Boat.
Big Red Boat.
And there's a Big Red Boat, which stands for BRB. In other words, there are shirts that say Be Right Back. So it's a big-ass ferry. Now, here's a tip for you guys that like to travel on ferries. I make no judgments. Okay. If you get on the ferry and there's a bunch of cars on the ferry and they tell you to go between a couple of the cars, don't do that. Don't do that. Merritt, why shouldn't they do that?
Well, if you park between the two cars, there is a chance that people will keep their cars or their refrigerated produce trucks running during the entire time you're crossing.
Oh, I'd say it's a goddamn certainty. Yeah.
And we, in fact, had that
We
happen.
sucked diesel
Yeah.
for about 45 minutes with an output of the diesel, this like Iveco, this 30-year-old Iveco truck sitting there, couldn't run its reefer. No, it didn't run the reefer. I saw the reefer was on it. No, he's running the diesel. Probably reefer's burned out a long time ago. But yeah, he's sitting there, and that whole time we just sucked fucking waste diesel. And of course, you're in between two cars. Park near the walls of the boat. Park your bike up against the wall of the boat on the side stand leads toward anyway, and then enjoy the trip. You can have a better time.
So
Much better.
I just feel like, if you're willing to suspend some of your normal comforts and some of your normal, requirements, the opportunity the things that are great about riding motorcycles are all great there. You're closer to the nature, you're closer to the people, there's chances for creativity in terms of packing and parking, and it really added a lot to our trip, but really need to be the kind of rider that can truly handle different circumstances.
We found
to do it
roads
safely.
where first gear wasn't low enough. We found roads that I had to actually zigzag up the road, cut the road into pieces to get up the damn thing. And we also found roads when we were coming down that I was on the front brake so much Merritt was passing through me. And the back tire was off the ground as we were going through these switchbacks. A lot of those places shouldn't have been paved, but Kenny Chesney lives there, so now it's all paved. So Kenny has it paved all the way up to his house now. So it's amazing, though. If you are considering going on a motorcycle adventure that's not advertised as a motorcycle adventure, we're going to tell you that we strongly recommend St. John's. We strongly recommend St. Thomas. We don't often do travel videos. But what I can tell you is getting yourself a KLX 300 and a little bag on the handlebars, you're going to be able to go everywhere on that island. And man, we took advantage of everything because we had a motorcycle. Super cool.
Well, thanks for taking us on that trip. It was great.
It was a great trip. And again, we didn't leave thinking it was going to be a motorcycle trip. So sometimes awesome just happens, or as they say, adventures run on all sorts of whiskey. So remember, folks, ride fast and take chances. Bum bum ba da ba ba da bum bum ba da ba. Press the red button, Steve.